Hello all, this is Alice Cherian, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Government First Grade College, Kyarpura, Bangalore. Today, we are going to discuss the lesson Nationalism and Interview from the English text for 4th Sem BCom. Nationalism and Interview is one of the excerpts of interviews of Bertrand Russell conducted by Woodrow Wyatt for British television in 1959. Bertrand Arthur William Russell was a British mathematician, philosopher, logician, historian, essayist, social critic, political activist, and Nobel laureate. Russell's contributions to logic, epistemology, and the philosophy of mathematics established him as one of the foremost philosophers of the 20th century. He published 70 books and about 2,000 articles. To understand this lesson better, we need to first understand certain keywords. Nationalism. Nationalism is identification with one's own country and support for its interest. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನು ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯತೆ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾವುದೇ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಅಸ್ತಿತ್ವವುಳ್ಳ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗಳ ಸಮೂಹದ ಒಂದು ದೃಢ ಗುರುತಿಸುವಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯತೆ ಒಳಗೊಂಡಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಸಂ is a system of social organization in which all property is owned by the community and each person contributes and receives according to their ability and needs. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮತಾವಾದ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಸಮತಾವಾದ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವತ್ತು ಸಮುದಾಯಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇರಿರುತ್ತದೆ. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯು ಶಕ್ತಿಯಾನುಸಾರವಾಗಿ ದುಡಿದು ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆಗೆ ಅನುಸಾರವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರತಿಫಲವನ್ನು ಪಡೆಯಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ತತ್ವವನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಸಂ ಎಂದು ಕರೀತೇವೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಮುಂದೆ ರೇಸಿಸಮ್ is prejudice directed against someone of different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ವರ್ಣಭೇದ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ವರ್ಣದ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ಭೇದ ಭಾವ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನು ಅಥವಾ ಪೂರ್ವಾಗ್ರಹ ಪೀಡಿತರಾಗಿರುವುದನ್ನು ನಾವೇನನ್ಬೋದು ವರ್ಣಭೇದ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಈ ಎಸ್ಸೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ಟ್ರಾಂಡ್ ರಸಲ್ ಅವರು ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯತೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೂಲಂಕುಷವಾಗಿ ಅನೇಕ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ಪ್ರಸ್ತಾಪಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. In this essay, Bertrand Russell discusses at length various aspects of nationalism. Nationalism has various aspects, some good and some bad. The first broad difference is between cultural aspects and those which have to do with economics and politics. From a cultural point of view, there are very strong arguments in favor of nationalism. But from a political or economic point of view, nationalism is usually harmful. Cultural nationalism has brought extraordinary uniformity in the modern world in terms of service, tourism, food, and clothing, which is making traveling dull. In his essay on nationalism, Bertrand Russell says that from the cultural point of view, the large uniformities which grow up in a cosmopolitan world are inimical to art and literature and tend to be oppressive of young talent. Purpose. The main purpose of the state is its defense, that is to defend its integrity. The state is primarily an organization for killing foreigners. Though they do other things such as education and other welfare activities, they teach subtly the youth that it is grand to kill foreigners. Nationalism can be harmful as a part of its teaching. It inculcates the view that one's own country is glorious and has always been right in everything. On this note, Bertrand Russell recollects that how when he was young, they used to sing a verse in British anthem, at Rule Britannia, which said, "Confound their knavish tricks, frustrate their politics, and make them fall." This was about the foreigners that they used to sing in their national anthem. Later, the British dropped this verse. Now he says it is no more Rule Britannia, it is Rule the United States of America in the present global scenario. If this is the harmful nature of nationalism, then why nationalism? It is because people want to be divided into national states as it is a part of our emotional nature that we are liable to both love and hate, and we like to exercise them. We love our countrymen only when we are thinking of foreigners. And when we have forgotten foreigners, we don't love them so much. So we love our countrymen and we hate foreigners. This is the very basic nature of human emotion. How to delimit nationalism? He moves on to then discuss how to delimit nationalism, answering one of the questions from Woodrow Wyatt, which says that if nationalism is so harmful, how can we limit, how can we check nationalism? There is no such international authority who can limit nationalism. Having one international armed force, that is one army, one navy and one air force, can limit nationalism from going too far. So having one international armed force would help run an orderly society, particularly in times of crisis and tension. The other thing is through unifying the governments, we can put nationalistic feelings in bound. At this point, he gives us an example of Scotland and England, that how these both countries were rival countries for centuries. They fought many gruesome wars. But by inheritance in 1603, James VI of Scotland became King of England and Ireland, thus forming a personal union of three kingdoms. So Scotland subsequently entered into a political union with England on 1st May 1707 to create the new Kingdom of Great Britain. The next important aspect that Bertrand Russell discusses is nationalism as stimulus. According to him, if you're going to have some kind of rivalry and stimulus in a competitive way, surely the nation is really a convenient way if it doesn't involve killing. Still, Russell finds that achieving just for a nation's glory is a very narrow stimulus. For example, if a person wants to climb the Mount Everest or wants to invent a machine to fly to outer space, he might be more inspired to do it for his country, but still he would do it as well for the glory of the organization which supports him or the institute that he represents. So he says, let there be competition to excel one another, let there not be killing while competing. If one nation builds a fine town hall, let the other nation build it too, but that's good, until and unless it does not involve killing. And the next aspect is racism and nationalism. How are they interlinked? Racial prejudice intensifies nationalism. Though they are not same, they get allied with each other. More than Americans and Europeans, recently liberated Asia and Africa suffer more from racial prejudices because it's rather new with them. However, he singles out India in this case. In spite of racial prejudice everywhere, India, a recently liberated Asian country, is surviving and succeeding post-independence without racial prejudices, which is rare and unique. The next important aspect of nationalism is education. Nationalism seems to be so much more virulent today than it ever has been before due to education. He says education has been very harmful, and he also thinks that it would have been better if people were unable to read and write, because the great majority, when they learn to read and write, become open to propaganda. And in each country, the propaganda is controlled by the state and is what the state likes. The propaganda is all about the state and what the state likes the people to hear. So education opens one to propaganda, and this can be very harmful. Therefore, there are many threats due to this kind of propaganda. Nationalism itself is a very great danger than the East-West tension. Here, East-West tension is a geopolitical tension between the Soviet Union and the United States and their respective allies. It can threaten, here the nationalism can threaten mankind more than the peaceful extension of communism. This is the extent of danger that we can expect from a nationalism which can be unchecked. So what is the solution to this kind of threat? He says the only hope is that people will get positive aims for promoting the welfare of their own country and other countries rather than the negative aims of strife. You see, We are forced here to conclude that in the modern world, nationalism is a grave evil and a source of appalling danger, and that if we are to escape disaster, we must develop internationalism in the sphere to which it belongs, namely that of economics, politics, and war. All the nations of the world, both great and small, have sinned in placing their own interests above that of the world at large. So it is to be expected that they will continue to do so until such time as there are international institutions strong enough to insist upon the decision of vexed questions in accordance with the general human welfare and not with the insolence of this or that particular region. Therefore, with this positive hope, which offers a future to our distracted species, we end the discussion of this lesson.